Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another show. This is Muhammad and Friends. And I can't think of a finer person to have than my friend and brother, Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, my
How
brother.
are you, sir?
I'm good.
You're looking great.
Thank you.
Younger and younger.
That's what Allah promised.
But you know, it's amazing how time flies. But I want you to know I really appreciate you coming here today. And the last time we did a show was the 300 show right here. And I think this is about 400 for Muhammad and Friends. So that means that we missed a year, but nevertheless, it's good to have you.
Thank you very much.
I really want to get started because historically speaking, and that's what we always name our shows when we do them with you, because we want to dig deep into the history as it relates to the Nation of Islam. And when I think of the history, I have fond memories. So I want to start off very early on, 1955. That's when you joined the Nation of Islam. And kind of give me a little idea of how it was for you, because so many people have come to know the minister, not, in my opinion, just with the Nation of Islam. You began to become broader than that, as they say. Some people see the Nation of Islam as a kind of narrow view, but you on the world stage. So I want to tie all that in today.
Well, 1955 was about the greatest year of my life, except the date of my birth, because that was the date of my rebirth into the knowledge of self and the knowledge of God and the religion of Islam, which we have come to know is the natural religion of man and that which belongs to black people by nature. I was appearing downtown on 801 North Rush Street in a nightclub called the Blue Angel. All of that is gone now. I was driving by there the other night, and those memories of my performing in that nightclub, and as I was driving through the street in a taxi with my wife, I happened to look out the window and see one of my friends from Boston, Brother Rodney Smith, who grew up with me and I with him. So I stopped the cab and got out and talked to my friend, and he said, "Well, your uncle is right around the corner." We were somewhere near Wentworth and where the grocery store was, and a restaurant. So when I walked around and saw my uncle and a lot of Muslims from Boston that I knew, they took me by their hotel and were telling me about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who I'd heard of many years before. But now this was their annual Savior's Day convention, and so I was invited. My wife and I were staying at the Wilmington Arms, which is at 49th and Drexel.
Did you always like working in Chicago? I mean, or was this your first job?
No, this was not. This was the second time I was in Chicago. I was in Chicago in the fall of 1954.
Okay.
And I believe I saw a lot of signs of Mayor Daley. He was running for the mayor, to be the mayor at that time. I came back again in 1955. I didn't like Chicago because I could perform in a white restaurant for white people, but I could not live on the north side. And wherever I went to get a room or something to accommodate me and my wife and my first child, there were no vacancies for a black person. So I ended up at the Wilmington Arms Hotel on 49th and Drexel. I didn't have a good opinion of Chicago. I felt that Chicago was a very racist city at that time. And I was angry as I performed because I felt if I'm good enough to entertain you, I should be good enough to live where I entertain. So I almost got into a physical altercation with the owner of the restaurant, a Mr. Gene Faduli, a big, strapping Greek gentleman, about 6'4", 300 pounds. But that didn't mean nothing to me. You know,
certainly I'm not trying to defend Chicago, but of course, Brother Minister, the entire United States was racist. You couldn't eat.
Well, all of that is true.
Yeah. But you're saying in particular...
But it was...
You weren't looking to move to Chicago?
No.
Okay.
No, I was living in Boston, and when you live in an all-black neighborhood, you go to a school that's all black, you don't run into racism.
Yeah.
So when I came to Chicago, not that I didn't run into racism in Boston, because it certainly was there, but to experience it personally bothered me. So I didn't like the town. But I went to 5335 South Greenwood Avenue to hear the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And that day, February 26, 1955, was the day that turned my life around. And I didn't realize that we always give gifts on Savior's Day, but I didn't realize that I was to be a Savior's Day gift to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he to me.
And you know, that's how many of us got to know you, is through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And that's certainly what I want to talk about, you know, whether this show ever airs or not, but from a historical perspective, because I continue to hear, and I have been quite concerned that you're saying that you might not be here next year, the next Savior's Day. And I want to fast forward a moment. I want you to know, on Tuesday, February 26th, is the first time in nearly 25 years that I felt like a Savior's Day on a Tuesday. It didn't make any difference what day it was, and to see so many people coming for Savior's Day. So I certainly appreciate that. I felt real good about that. But having said that, Brother Minister, I have been concerned because I really don't think people have really gotten to know the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I think, as I said to you maybe 16, 17 years ago in the airport, that when it comes to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, what about us as brothers, you know, you and I and other people who had followed the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? It seems that we're able to make friends with everyone else with the exception of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And even in the atonement period, everyone talks about atonement, which I have to be honest with you, many instances I see as lip service by a lot, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is drugged through the mud. This is the 10th of March as we're doing this show. February is over. No mention of him in Black History Month. Nowhere. And that continues to bother me. And then when people see that you try to invoke his name, you said yourself, it is language that changes thought. Well, if it's language that changes thought, what about the language, the removal of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? You were doing well when you came to Chicago. You were entertaining. You were making money. You certainly didn't have to give that up to come into something that was not going to make your life better. I asked you once, what made you choose that route? You know, and you told me you didn't know what was behind that door. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten to know you. And I really want a lot of these people to understand that we don't have some artificial relationship. So when I talk to you, I want to talk to you from a historical point of view, but I want you to share with me the pain that you went through as the pain that I go through with dealing with some of these same people, different names, but what you had to deal with. So I want, as they say, let's lay it out today. Can we do that?
Let me just say this, Brother Munir. First, pain is a necessary part of the human experience.
Yes.
Our mothers went through pain bringing us here, and we went through pain coming here. And the only way we can grow is really through the pain of the suffering of the human experience, that Allah says in the Quran that He created man in difficulty and to face difficulty, and He created us to struggle. And it is only through struggle that the best and the worst of us is manifest. I say that to say this. When I came to believe in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I believed that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would ultimately be the winner. I never doubted that the people that don't know him, the people that speak ill of him, the people that reject him would always be that way, because the scripture teaches us that the dead of our people would rise and that all the dry bones in the valley were given life. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that he would be the winner, living or dead. So when you look at the prophets, Brother Munir, who never were spoken well of by their contemporaries, we are 27 years away from the time of the departure of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And even though there's no mention of him in Black History Month, or people don't know him, I am confident that just as it was with Jesus, just as it was with Muhammad, peace be upon them, that if you know that Jesus only taught in the tiny state of Palestine, when Jesus was crucified, many people didn't know him outside of Palestine. But the disciples who became apostles spread his message, particularly Paul. So the unknown Jesus in 300 years became known all over that part of the world. And now you can go nowhere in the world without somebody talking about Jesus. I truly believe, Brother Munir, I may not live to see it, you may not live to see it, but the work that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did among us, nobody can reverse that work. We are awake, we have arisen, our people are on the move. They'll never put the black man back where the black man was. And the future, to me, is very bright. And that future has to take the Honorable Elijah Muhammad into consideration, because everything that we will do, that I am doing and will ever do, will bear the stamp of his name.
And you know, let me say, that's one of the things that why I'm glad that I'm able to ask you these questions, because that's the love that I bring out. And I have to be honest with you, I am biased. I'd love to see you stay in what they call the narrow perspective and just teach Elijah. And I'm saying this in a good way, because no one can do it better. I mean, whenever that I speak to you in private, I've never came away from a conversation that I was not relieved. I said, I just wish that other people could hear this kind of conversation as I came to know you. I mean, I knew you as strictly the defender of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And let me share this with you. You know, it's a new language now with Malcolm. You came into New York City in 1965. Everybody was criticizing the Nation of Islam, Malcolm this, Malcolm that. 10 years later, they were saying, Malcolm who? What did you do that you came into New York and all of a sudden you were making Muhammad known all over again? All of that was put to rest. In fact, I have a little magazine during the time when you were suing for one of those newspapers for defamation, when they tried to tie you in with Malcolm. When this little magazine, there was no mention of you doing any harm to Malcolm or even participating in that. I had this little documentary, not a documentary, but it was a little magazine. In fact, I gave it to Sister Ava. But the point is that you made the people forget who this guy was. Now, I have to ask you, this slander and defamation, is there a consequence for that? Is there a consequence for what these people did to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? In fact, Malcolm said he was less than a man. Some things are forgiven, they say, but it's whether you ask forgiveness 70 times surely Allah will not forgive them no matter what. Maybe I'm not quoting, but I know what it's in the ninth surah.
Forgiveness is with Allah.
Okay.
I can't get into the shoes of God
Right.
to say whether he will be or will not be forgiven. But I can say this, that Malcolm X continues to be one who keeps bringing people to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You can read Malcolm's autobiography, except for the last chapter. His whole book is about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So when you look at a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, like Brother Malcolm, and you look at the effect that a student has had, you look at the effect of Muhammad Ali, the effect that a student has had, you look at the effect of Warith Deen Muhammad, the effect that a student has had, and you look at the effect of Louis Farrakhan, it's impossible for you to deny the greatness of the teacher if you extol the greatness of the students that the teacher produced. None of us would be what we are today without our having been in contact with and been taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So let me say this now. See, Malcolm was the #1 anti-Semite on the list of the ADL when he was assassinated.
Right.
There were 11 daily newspapers in New York. Not one of them praised Brother Malcolm. They hated him, and they were joyous at his death. They found a way through the trial and the false accusation of some of the followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to blame the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad for Malcolm X's assassination. Well, this was to kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah,
so when I came to New York, my duty was not necessarily to bury Brother Malcolm, but my duty was to lift the Honorable Elijah Muhammad from the ashes of his burial by the media and Negro leaders at that time. God bless me to do that. Now, if we move into our history, my history in particular, when Malcolm sent me to Boston, supposedly to be the minister, the Boston Mosque had fallen apart. My duty was to rebuild the Boston Mosque. When I was sent by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to New York after Brother Malcolm's unfortunate assassination, my duty was to rebuild the New York Mosque. By the grace of God, I rebuilt Boston, made it one of the most progressive mosques by Allah's grace in the country. Then we rebuilt the New York Mosque and made it the most progressive mosque in the nation, while at the same time rebuilding the name of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now my task was, in the third phase of my development, to rebuild the Nation of Islam. At the time that I started rebuilding in 1977, there was no mention of Brother Malcolm. His name was not dead, but he was not a public icon. So when the nation began to grow again under my leadership, and I was becoming exceedingly popular among black people. Now, you know, the Honorable Marcus Garvey filled Madison Square Garden. Louis Farrakhan not only filled it, but 50,000 people came and nearly 20,000 couldn't get in. We filled the Forum in Los Angeles. So the powers that be were so concerned of the rise of the Nation of Islam. It was the powers that be that felt they should resurrect the name of Brother Malcolm and make him an icon to destroy the growing popularity of Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. So when that happened, you know, there had to be a certain skill and wisdom in my approach to a man now that the enemy had made an icon. At this very moment, if Brother Malcolm were to come back from the grave and see his face on a U.S. government stamp, he would wonder what happened. Because he spoke so harshly against the government, against the President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, against the white establishment, against Jewish control of black organizations. So tell me, what was the plan? If the New York Post, if the Washington Post, if the New York Times, if the Chicago Tribune, if the Los Angeles Times, and those papers controlled by whites and owned by members of the Jewish community decided to raise Malcolm, what was their motive? Not the motive of those who benefited from Brother Malcolm, who are nationalistic in their thinking, who hold him in high esteem. They did not raise Malcolm. Warner Brothers. Who is Warner Brothers? Yeah. Who would put out a movie on Malcolm X and then make X a household name? It was the same people that called him the #1 leading anti-Semite. And they have never changed their view of him, okay?
Very good.
So now the minister is faced with a dilemma. I still have to raise the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's name. I still have to raise the nation, but now they have put in my path a man that is dead, that they made a living icon, that they hoped to use young black people who would love Malcolm and turn these young warriors, these young gangbangers that they had armed with guns against the rise of the Nation of Islam. So Louis Farrakhan, man, is a general. I'm not no corporal, brother. I am a general. And every one of you that don't understand the general, don't think that you should know the moves of a general who is thinking about the nation, who's thinking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who's thinking about the impediments that the enemy puts in the path of our progress. So I have to maneuver around all of that and keep the believers safe and yet move forward at the same time. So God has blessed me to do that, brother, in a masterful way. And if nobody says it, history will record that Farrakhan absolutely was guided by God to do what I have done. So in the process now, Farrakhan has not been diminished as Malcolm has been raised to be an icon. Because as great as Brother Malcolm was, my work exceeds his work.
Okay.
Okay. As great as my father was, Jesus said, greater work shall you do than I do. My work is greater than my Father's work, but my work will never be anything without my Father. So my Father gets the credit for everything that I do. So I'm not diminishing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I am a representative of his, not just his word, brother, but when you look at me, when you listen to me, when you see the success that God blesses me with, that's the guidance of that man, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
I want to go. I want you to have passion, but I want to go back to this language. I want you to go back to this language, though, because where you say, and that's one of the things. And I'm glad this is history, so we're both going to get a chance to ask a question, and you're going to, of course, answer these questions as you're doing. And I certainly don't mind you feeling the way that you feel, but I have some concerns too. Now, you made a statement there that your work exceeded the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Is that? Explain that to me, if you can.
Sure. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad laid the foundation.
Okay.
We are to build on that foundation. No disciple of Jesus ever thought that they were greater than Jesus, but they opened the eyes of the blind, they made the deaf hear, the dumb speak. Paul was one of the greatest disciples of Jesus and carried his name to the ends of the earth. His work was greater than the work of his master, but his master got the credit for the work because everything that Paul did, everything that Peter did, everything that James and John did, they had to do it in his name. So the work that I've done, when did my father call a 1,000,000-man march and 1,000,000, 2,000,000 men showed up. That's reality, brother. But that is done in his name. I can't ever outdo my Father, but my work will be greater because I'm in a greater time than my Father.
Okay, but because the 1,000,000 men, the 2,000,000 men came, is that the premise that we're talking about? See, because
what we're talking about what we're talking about is the reach to people, which was my Father's work. Okay. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said of me, Brother Munir, he said, you are more valuable to me, Brother Farrakhan. At one point, when I made a speech at the Summit of African in
1970 in Atlanta.
In 1970 in Atlanta.
Okay.
That speech that he gave me, that I spoke, he said, after I made that speech, your name will go down in the history of 40 countries. And that speech was more valuable, and you are more valuable to me than a truckload of diamonds and gold. At another point, he said to me, he said, brother, you are more valuable to me than 1,000 airplanes with 1,000 head of sheep on every airplane. And then the last time he spoke of my value, he said, quote, you are more valuable to me than all of the wealth that is in the earth. Because when I came here, that wealth was here. And when I leave here, that wealth will still be there. But through you, I will get all of my people. Okay. Now, if the messenger's work is people, not businesses, but people.
Okay.
And the minister is reaching more people today than any of the messengers, laborers, helpers, or ministers, and that is his work. And turning people toward the light that he gave to me to give to them, that is a greater manifestation of his mission.
You know, Brother Minister, and, I grant that for you, as you, the person of knowledge. But I have to go back here a moment, and allow me to deal with a couple of dates here. Now, August 24 of 1997, according to you, and very passionately again, and I'm quoting you, you said, don't anybody anymore refer to me as leader. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was, is, and always shall be the leader of the Nation of Islam. If I'm the leader, why haven't I come up with something new? Now, in 1980, I want you to help me here, because this is what really got me to do what I do. Because remember, it was you who was the teacher of the defense of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And of course, I've shared this with you. But in 1980, in Los Angeles, in Survival or Death, which I had never heard you say this, you were talking about Malcolm, and you were talking about your enemies in the Nation of Islam, how people were treating you. The more you worked, the more they tried to discredit you. And I can call some names, and I know it's not necessary, but I know how they dealt with you. And you said that at one point you had come to think and say, I'm human, I'm just telling you what I think, that I thought my leader was behind it. You remember that?
Sure.
Yeah. And so I want to kind of understand the language in what you're talking so I can get a better feel.
Let me help you.
Okay, help.
Brother, because in helping you, I'm not only helping you, but I'm helping the people that are watching who really don't understand.
That's right.
And I would say that a lot of us who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't understand him.
Right.
And as time goes on, we grow to a greater depth of knowledge. Now, I'll tell you what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said of me. You can believe it or disbelieve it, but the facts remain. One day I was sitting at his table, and he said, quote, Master Farad Muhammad has made me to take his place among the people, and I am making you to take mine. One day I sat at his table, he said, brother, when I am gone, you may sit in my seat as the father over the house. I'm sitting in his seat. He's still the father, but I am acting in his place by his permission and with authority. There's a difference. Many people can speak in his name, but I have not only the speech in his name, but I have the authority from him and the God to do exactly what I'm doing.
The God,
So,
okay.
so I'm saying that to say this. He told me, brother, there'll be two of us backing you up, Allah and myself. I don't doubt, and soon all of you will come to know that I have backing in what I say and do in America. And without those two backing me up, I would have no power to do anything. And that is why I said then, and I'll say now, even though I am sitting in his seat by his permission, he's the leader, but I am leading in his absence by his permission. So when you're looking at me, you're looking at Farrakhan, or are you looking at a manifestation of the man that you say you love and want to follow? What are you looking at when you see Louis Farrakhan? Who are you looking at? Why did he tell you all when you see him, look at him? And when he speaks, listen to him. And wherever he tells you go, go. And wherever he tells you stay from, stay from. Why did he say that? He said his teaching is a bearing of witness of me, so continue. The word continue to hear my minister Farrakhan. Now you think about that. When Master Farad Muhammad was here, he told those ministers in that day, hear Kareem. In his absence, hear him. He made a few what they thought were innovations. And then
deviation.
What they call deviation, innovation. And then some sought to kill him because they felt he was taking too much on himself by saying he was the messenger of God. Well, here we are, 72 years later, and it seems like we have not learned the lesson of history. But, my dear brother, the fact remains, Elijah Muhammad is alive and well in us who love him, in us who believe in what he taught, and in us who represent his character, not just his message, but the strength of his character. Now, language is a very important word because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad popularized the term black. Before Elijah Muhammad, you could call a man a black so-and-so and so-and-so. They weren't angry because you called them the so-and-so and so-and-so. They were angry because you referred to them as black.
Okay.
Now, when Elijah Muhammad left, the only way you could change the thinking of the people is to change their concept of blackness by changing the language. And this is what they did. And so black fell out of vogue. Then it became the minority, the disadvantaged, then African Americans, which then limited us in our connection to black people all over the earth. That was a change in language. Now, if you want to question me on my use of language to get from where we were to where we are, I'd be glad to answer those questions.
The reason I'm saying this, see, I want to go back, and of course, you believed in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to do the kind of work you've done. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But when you raised the issue in 1980, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was the first begotten from the dead. And we, in fact, my own biological brother, one of the fierce arguments that I had with him about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad being jealous of anybody. And my point, I had known you, and we had spoken. I was there when it was unfashionable. I'm the brother who was over on the west side, in which we will deal with that too. And you were a man that I left the mosque with, based on what they did to you on the west side of Chicago.
Can I say this?
And please, I want you to say it, Brother Minister. But see, you say so much, I got to be able to remember something. We did it historically.
I want to come back to that point.
I want you to come back to it. Okay, I'll stop. I give way.
I wanted to come back to the point of language, and there was something that you wanted me to answer.
I think you said sitting in the seat, and
no, but there's something else
about the survival of death. About was the way they were treating you. The more you worked, the more you were mistreated.
Oh, I know what it is.
Please.
I know what it is.
Right.
Excuse me.
Please.
You know, when I said in California that I came to think that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad might have been jealous or envious. Well, when I admitted that, that was part of the reason for my stumble and my fall. Because, you know,
I agree.
I was a student under Malcolm.
Okay.
He, to me, outside of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was the best teacher that I had. I learned much from that man, and I shall always be grateful for his life and the impact that his life had on my life, even though I disagreed with him when he deviated from the path of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and spoke ill of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, having said that, you may have heard me say on a tape that I spoke in Detroit. I had a dream or vision of Malcolm X. He came to me in this dream. He was much older because his hair showed gray in it. And he said to me, Brother Lewis, what happened? When he asked me what happened, I could tell him what happened because I walked up in Malcolm's shoes. Now, those of you who are watching this broadcast...
Do you want to take a break? Or something?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Those of you who are watching this broadcast, what does it mean to walk in the shoes of Malcolm X inside the nation? You know that Malcolm was the most popular of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's ministers, and you also know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad favored him. He praised him at practically every major meeting that we had as his great helper, etc., etc. And then we watched the Muhammad Speaks, which Malcolm did start the paper.
You know, and I don't like to doubt you, but I do have doubts.
No,
you know,
he started a paper in New York
Okay.
called Mr. Muhammad Speaks.
Okay.
He put out a few editions, and then the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1962 put out the first edition of Muhammad Speaks. He dropped the Mr. And it became Muhammad Speaks.
But wasn't that also in 1957 there was a column in the Supreme Wisdom 1 and 2? I mean, with Mr.
Muhammad Speaks.
Yeah, okay. So,
yeah,
all right.
but so Malcolm didn't, this is no... this was no
can you
bright
understand?
idea.
Okay.
You understand? Malcolm was a student.
Okay.
But he was a progressive student. That's the point. And because he was a progressive student, he earned enmity and jealousy and envy among some of the top laborers of the Nation of Islam, among some of the ministers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Malcolm and I had conversations where he was going to quit in 1957 because some of the ministers were speaking ill of him, and he said, well, I'm not going to go around anymore trying to help these ministers, and they're speaking of him in such a disparaging way. And I said, would you cut me off because of what others are doing? I'm not saying that. So Brother Malcolm then rethought his position, but at a certain point, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was literally feeding the envy to create a trial for Malcolm? Are we running over in your tape?
No, not really. Not. Oh. But it seems like something that people want to tell us. So it's our show. If you want to take a break, we can.
I want to finish this point.
Okay, please, please. No, but go ahead.
You got me on a roll.
Yeah, I want to keep. But let me
finish this point.
Please.
Though.
All right.
Yeah. What is important is to know that Elijah Muhammad was a master teacher.
Mm-hmm.
His knowledge of us was based on his terrific understanding of Scripture. So when we came in his presence, he was always trying to see who we were in regards to what the prophets predicted of what was in this time and his helpers, etc., etc. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as you remember, would tell us he was going away. He had to leave somebody in charge. The papers were saying Malcolm X, the heir apparent to Elijah Muhammad.
Okay.
Well, if you're going to sit in Elijah's seat, you have to be a man that can take plenty and not retaliate with those who might speak ill of you or even try to do evil to you. So Elijah Muhammad tried Malcolm. And in the end, brother failed the test. Because not only did he think his teacher was envious, but he turned on his teacher who was his benefactor.
That's right.
And that disqualified him because if Elijah Muhammad left and Malcolm would have sit in his seat and people would do to him what they ended up doing to me.
And they wouldn't have been able to take it.
Exactly.
That's right.
Now, wait, please let me finish this point.
Okay.
Now, when I thought that some of the ministers were envious and they were doing evil things to hurt me, I came to his table and brought it up. And when I brought it up, he hit the table and said, brother, seek refuge in Allah from the envier when he envies. And he walked out of the room. And when he came back in the room and sat down, he looked me straight in my face and said these words, quote, brother, when you have a piece of board that you're putting in the corner of the building to uphold the weight of the building, you have to put a lot of stress on that board to see if that board can take it. And if it can't, you throw that board away and get you another one. When I left the house that day, I later came to understand that I was being tried like Malcolm was being tried. And he wanted to see what kind of man I was, that my own fellow laborers could turn on me and do evil things against me, yet I would never respond to them with evil. Then he knew that if he left me in his seat, in his absence, that I could take the abuse, the lying, the slander, the maligning that I take from some of his followers even to this day. And I have never responded in kind because I already know that I'm going to be the winner like my father, living or dead. So when Malcolm asked me what happened, and I ran this down to him in the dream, he said, I'm going to find the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and make peace with him. And that brought joy to my heart because with Brother Malcolm at my side doing this work, I knew we could accomplish the task.
You know, we're going to have to fast forward, see, but I want to go back to something else. That's the context in which you spoke about. And but what I was saying is the very thought that you were able to think that, and that's what you said that actually spared you, because you recognized that you had that kind of thought, which you said
no,
also.
No, it didn't spare me. That thought led to my fall. That thought led...
But that's how you were able to recover.
I was not able to recover without the help of God and the prayers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad for me. In fact, I spoke to 500 preachers one day at Boston University, and I sent him the tape, and he was so pleased with what I said and their response to what I said, he sent me a letter. And in that letter he said, "Brother, if you ever turn hypocrite on me because of that one speech that you made, I will pray to Allah that he will bring you back in words to the path." Those are not the perfect words, but I believe that's why I came back. By the prayers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the intercession of God, and the help of others to help me to get back up on my feet after I lost my mooring. And that is my job, to help others who have lost the path of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to get back up on their feet and believe in him as we once did.
You know, I have so many questions, so much I want to talk about, as I say, historically. I don't care if this tape ever goes any place. As they say, put it in a time capsule. But some things I have to know because of the confusion. And we know that doubt is the mother of hypocrisy. And I certainly can't quote a lot of speeches about Malcolm, but I certainly can quote a lot about you, because you were the example of the defender that we all were looking for. And I'm saying to you, as you know, your relationship with Malcolm, and we talk about language, is that transferable? I mean, when you refer to him as Brother Malcolm now, does that mean that in order for me to feel whole, that I got to receive him that way? The nation to be rebuilt have to perceive. You understand what I'm asking?
Yeah.
And let me say this, though, Brother Minister, because when I ask you these questions, I'm asking you from a Muslim perspective and one who's serious about wanting to know. And even though it may make others uncomfortable and they may have dislike about it, I'm serious about this. I do this every day. And I'm saying I want to know because I think it needs to be...
You're serious about your love for him.
Yes. But maybe of course...
So am I.
Okay, and I understand.
But your role and my role
are different.
Are not the same,
Of course it's not.
So now, the mission is not on your shoulder.
Okay.
The mission is on mine. On mine. So if the mission is on my shoulder and my leader leaves me with an assignment, I have, as Master Farad left him with one, but didn't tell him how to do it. Mm-hmm. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad left me with a mission, but he didn't necessarily tell me how to do it. I have to study him. And if you watch the Honorable Elijah Muhammad carefully, he used language at certain points. For instance, I don't know when you became a follower of his.
72.
Well, that was
late.
late. That was late in his time among us. You only had 3 years with him, but I had 17 years prior to that watching him use language to move the nation from one place to another. For instance, when I came in the nation, when we had a salutation, we said, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the one true and living God. You know, and we had some more words, and then we said, and we thank him for raising up the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That was the language. Sometime in the 60s, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad changed it and put Master Farad Muhammad in the salutation. Then, in the later stages, he didn't drop Master Farad Muhammad, but he used another type of language. In the beginning, we were called Muhammad Temple. Temple. But temple is not a word that would bring about a bridge between us and the Muslim world. So in 1957, that's way back there, he changed the language from temple now to Muhammad Mosque. And since the Arabs or the Muslim world was watching, we were making what you call dua and prayer. But just to get a black man up, a black woman up at 5 a.m. in the morning to face the east in this manner was a great task. But the Arab and Muslim world was saying to him, well, you know, Mr. Muhammad, when are you going to teach the people the prayer as it is written in the Quran and as Prophet Muhammad laid this prayer down for us? He said to them, be patient. I will do this in time. And in 1957, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us a prayer book which outlined the prayer as Muslims do it all over the world, but he said it was in English. He said in the future you would learn it in Arabic. Now, why did he make these changes? And then, if you recall now, his last speech in 1974. Now, you are not privileged to the conversation that he had with me when I was really railing on white people. He called me and said, brother, I wish you'd stop throwing trash in a well that I'm trying to get a drink of water out of, and hung up the phone. I don't know what he's talking about. Trash, I'm only using his teaching. Now I go to his table, and he said to me, brother, I don't want you to use the language devil. I want you to use the language Satan, the enemy, the slave master's children. A change in language. Now, in 74, when he had these two white-looking Muslims on the rostrum, if you go back and
I'm familiar with all of that.
Okay, let me then bring something up. Because he was broadening us in a way that we would find a connect to the Muslim world. He said these people that are on this rostrum, they're not here to see if you're clothed in a long white dress or a long black dress. They're here to see if you are clothed in the principles of your religion. Then, wait a minute, he said, quote, I didn't raise you up to be mockers of another people. He said how the white people allowed him to fly the flag of Islam. And then he said, listen, he said, you could call them devil. He said, but they could easily say to you, I didn't make myself. So if the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, you don't blame the clay, you blame the potter, what was he saying to us?
But you know, Brother Minister, I don't have a problem with that. I think, you know, the white folks' language and all of that, that's not my concern. I'm the last person that people can talk about. That's all I have as many white people on here, because the black ones I can't get. You understand? That's not a problem with me. I can talk to all the white people.
Now,
but let me say, see, this is the point I want to make to you. See, I have no doubt about your ability and what you know. But I can't believe that people are not confused when it comes to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the way that we are going and explaining the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I mean, you can do it. That's why we're sitting here talking. But I'm saying that just for an example. Now, we're going to fast forward because you're going to stay a few minutes longer, right? Okay.
What time is it now?
It's not even 11 o'clock. I haven't taken any break.
No, I'll stay a little longer.
Okay, all right, then that's what I'm saying. All right, listen. Now, see, look. What I want to get to is just for an example. You mentioned different quotations that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made. He also wrote a letter to his ministers, March 11, 1965, warning them after Malcolm. So it's very tempting to teach the people of yourself. You remember that? Okay. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying that there are people who have decided to interpret what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. Just as you made a quote, I have a tape that Wallace Muhammad made in New Jersey where he talked about his father being from the Jalil people, the ignorant class. He taught you of the wrong God. He taught you a lie. In effect, he called him a liar, and he said, if you don't like it, catch up with your crowd. Now, I know that Shaheed Muslim, the one that you call faithful, when Wallace Muhammad was outside the Nation of Islam, we had to go move him back into a place that his father bought for him. He wasn't able to do a lot on his own. Okay. Let me just say, you got to give me a chance, please. Because, see, We elevate these guys, just as you mentioned the Million Man March. I watched Meeks, Jesse Jackson, all of them critique you. I saw what they did in Alabama, my home state. I saw you go around every Monday night throughout this country, raising black men, preparing for the Million Man March. You had the worst turnout here in Chicago, but these are the people that are elevated. I'm saying from a Muslim perspective, help us, to find some love among... Brother Milton,
I'll help you.
Please. Help us. See, I got some of these brothers that we can't even speak to. Some of these brothers, you had one of your representatives who was speaking about this reorganization, so we don't even have a library. We don't have an archive. You yourself wrote a letter giving us that official title as the archive. I got pictures where him and Jabril came over here to look through our books, and then he asked me at the table, what's the name of this place? He couldn't even pronounce the name. Your son, Lewis, had to tell him the name. So I'm saying, what is the confusion? These people don't even understand whether we have a relationship or not. You have one son who knows, Joshua knows that I was there. I'm saying we don't even have a relationship ourselves, but all these other guys, they could be elevated and the people run and embrace them and show them love.
Man,
you can, Brother Minister, but
Munir,
please, and it's not, let me say this. It's just like, you had a little feeling a few moments ago.
Yeah,
I love you.
I understand all of that, beloved brother. Please.
So we got a few minutes to talk, don't we?
I am not offended.
Okay.
I want you to know that I'm not offended by sincere people, which you are, raising sincere questions, which you are raising. Because there are many people that would criticize me, but they wouldn't have the courage to raise a question for me to answer. And if my answer is not a good answer, then I need to rethink what I'm doing. Now, Brother Munir, see...
we got to go on this...
we got to go?
I can keep talking. They said we can keep talking.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm prepared to stay. And look, I'm prepared not only to stay today, but I want you to get out for historical purposes on tape these questions and the answers, because it will mean a lot in the future.
Okay.
It will mean a lot in the future. For you to raise the kinds of questions that may be in the minds of many that they would not have an opportunity to ask of me.
And not only that, I'm one who have to defend, and I just have to tell you this, Brother Man. We're going to, but we'll keep talking. Listen, our brothers and sisters...
This is not going to be on tape?
Yeah, this is going to be. Brothers and sisters, we're going to have a part a little bit more. So, we still...
What time is it? But if I leave at 11:30...
you walk...
If I leave at 11:30, we'll make it all right.
You got time. Brothers and sisters, we're talking as we're going out, but we just picked up one of the people on camera. But look, let me say, I tell you what, brothers and sisters, we're going out and we're going to come back and I'm going to talk more with my brother and friend. That's what you told me when you autographed the book for me, the Torchlight. You said I was your companion, right? You believe that?
Yeah.
I believe it too. Okay. Brothers and sisters, we'll be right back and talk more with Minister Farrakhan. Assalamu alaikum. We're back. You can see, brothers and sisters, I'm so anxious. I'm talking so fast. And we're back, and I want to give the minister a chance to finish his point and any other point. So this is part of...
Yes. Now, Brother Munir, see, the suffering that each one of us endure to try to follow a man as great as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is part of the process that God has ordained to make us into what God would have us to be. The people that downed me, the people that speak ill of me, the people even that condemn me, you said they spoke against the Million Man March, they did this, they did that, they did the other. All of that is true. But if, Brother Munir, I bask in the pain of their words or actions, how could I ever be a redemptive force for them? It's because I have the ability to take much. That Reverend Meeks, to me, is a great man. Even though he disagreed with me then, you know what the word respect means? R-E means again, and specto comes from the Latin word specto, spectare, which means to look again. Because what I was, I may not be. And what I am today, I may not be tomorrow. So when you continuously look at a thing, you are observant of the nuances of its growth, just like a mother looks at her baby to see the growth in the child. But if you deal with the child as it was at 6 months, when it is now a year, you fall behind. So when you say to me today that these people knocked the Million Man March, and they knocked me, something terrible and fierce, but my heart is not made like that, that I would go in my room and hate people for what they say. Then I could never do the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So I don't feel negative toward Reverend Jackson or Reverend Meeks or even the Imam for the things he may have said in the past. What I'm looking at is, where are you today, as our lessons teach us? It says, what are you doing today for yourself? Your brother from the East wants to know and hear from you at once. So what I did yesterday, maybe I'm doing something today that will offset what I said or did yesterday. And that's why we have to watch people, listen to people, and be honest that what we did yesterday, we may not do it today. So you even, Brother Munir, in your work, you know, I mean, the rejection that you feel sometimes, or the pain that you just mentioned to me when we were off camera, that people looked as an afterthought, and they handed you some award, and it was backwards and whatnot, you know. But, you know, Brother Munir, you're bigger than small-minded people who are envious or jealous. The more the Honorable Elijah Muhammad spoke favorably of me, why didn't the laborers take example from him and treat me in that manner? They couldn't, because of some disease that may have been in their own hearts. So when I come here to Crow, and I'm saying this for all the Muslims who are under my leadership, I wouldn't be here if I didn't love you and respect you for the work that you're doing for our Father. Now, for this man and those with him to set up a place like this, where they take the words of Honorable Elijah Muhammad and hold them sacred, so that children for tens of years, 25, 50 years can come and read about a man that they knew nothing about. That's a great work. That's an honorable work. So a committee for the remembrance of Elijah was absolutely necessary, and God blessed you and those with you to do it. And that's why I'm here. You are the nation's archivist, because nobody else has an archive like you. That was what you wanted to do, and God has blessed you abundantly to do that. But now, when you're successful, I watched you when you started. You didn't look like this, you didn't dress like this, you didn't have something like this, but over time, God has blessed you. And then there are some that are watching who may be envious. There are some that may be with me who don't like the fact that I think highly of you, because they don't have or share that same opinion. So when my back is turned, they may do something negative, as some of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's followers did when his back was turned, the things that they did to me. But I'm saying this to you, dear brother, look, I cannot harbor that in my heart. You know, I've been fighting cancer for 3 years. Yet when I sat down, you said, boy, you look good. You know what I mean? You look younger. Why do I look good? I look good because I think good. I look good because I am good. I look good because I refuse to harbor in my heart negativity toward the people that were negative toward me, because I'm always reaching for that person to make them better tomorrow than they are today, especially with respect to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, to get to Brother Malcolm, I say Brother Malcolm. Why I say Brother Malcolm? I know what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said about him. The thing that he did to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was not brotherly. It was terrible. That remains. But now, my brother is an icon. How do I help the general public to understand the relationship between Brother Malcolm and what happened between him and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, so we can move forward? He has family that's alive. Attila, Shabazz, her sisters. They represent the future. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad's younger children, my children, Martin Luther King's children, Jesse Jackson's children. Should they be mired down in the hatreds of their parents? Or should we understand what was, but recognize that we're in a new reality here and build something new and better without compromising the reality of what was? So in my calling him brother, even though I know the unbrotherly thing that he did, when the people in the street, if I stood up now and just railed on Brother Malcolm, as I used to do, how do I affect the thinking of these young people who have come to idolize him? So what must I do? How can I reach them without alienating them by an unwise use of language in my time? Now, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, through you, Brother Farrakhan, I will get all my people, then there must be something in me that God has created in me that would allow him to get all his people, even those that spoke ill against him and worked tirelessly to destroy his work. Today, brother, they are not the same as they were.
Okay, let me say, I think you have dealt with Malcolm effectively, but let me bring you up to point, because I know we have to go. But I have to get on into this because of the time and what we're operating in. Now, that's fine, what you do, because you have shown that you have the capacity to forgive and even ignore some of the slander that these people have done towards you. But you say that if not what they did yesterday, but what they're doing today, you know, and we come to the Imam, who, you know, not just affected you and your family, but I'm talking about affected me and my family. I knew some brothers and sisters that actually committed suicide during this time when the Imam came in, that was given to him. He didn't earn nothing on his own. And he's the guy who banned every book of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He did this, told us we don't need to be reading that for no purpose. Now, I'm not saying you have to have a moratorium to say, you know, everybody leave Wallace alone. That's not it. I'm talking about history. History will repeat this. Jim Jones, who a lot of our people were killed. They committed suicide. We wouldn't have been introduced to him had it not been for Wallace Muhammad. They were having a feud in San Francisco, as you probably know, where the Muslims used to have trouble with those guys. Wallace brought them here. He gave them the import store and a few other things. I was here in Chicago. The Muslims, in turn, went to San Francisco. Many of them, the older people, some of them even joined. Did those people end up dying in Guyana? So this is the same Wallace Muhammad who went to the federal court, and now in 1990 he went to Washington to declare the war on Iraq. Some Muslims who you say, which is forbidden, you're trying to unite the Muslims, got Muhammad Ali to endorse the war. This is something that Wallace Muhammad did. Now I'm saying if anything fits the Holy Quran better, fits the Honorable Elijah Muhammad better, is that Muhammad is not the father of any of your men, he's the messenger of Allah. I also heard you say that Wallace, because of what the messenger, brought him back in September. I remember that. I was there when Wallace was teaching late at night. But at the same time, he said we would honor this chair. We would respect this chair. At the same time, they was planning your demise, and which I know they were doing that. This is the same Wallace who did an interview just recently in California during your Savior's Day that I listened to a copy of the tape. He's monitoring your progress. You're coming around, and what he wanted. We could have had this in 75. You made more sense out of his message than he did. He brought Naeem Akbar in to circumvent you. Akbar was a professor down in Atlanta College or someplace, but he couldn't do what you did. You made his language better, even me, one who disliked him, but I was willing to acquiesce because of you, and many other people did. But what did you get for that? What he felt was punishment. Now, granted, that's the example that I see in you, that you took much. The only difference, I'll take much, but I respond. I want to be like the Anti-Defamation League, the way they do when it comes to to the Jewish people. That's the way I feel about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's your job, and you have a big job.
May I respond?
Please, you can't. You got to. I admire. Okay, all right, okay. I'm through.
No, you're not through. You really begin.
Yeah, but you understand how I feel.
Of course I do. All right, now, I think these are valid points raised that will be in the consciousness of Muslims who, when they see the Imam and I stand together, this is more of a sign to some of my deviation from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And then those in whose hearts is a disease, they might say, well, the minister needs to be removed or hurt or harmed or killed even. Well, here we are. I had some rabbis at my home, and I said to the rabbis, you all talk too much about Hitler and too little about God. If you say you are the chosen of God, then you need to ask the question, why did God permit Hitler to do to his people what Hitler did? The rabbi said, well, that's a very great theological question, and that is for higher minds to consider. He wouldn't even entertain the thought. Okay, then I said to this rabbi, I said, we talk too much about the white man and too little about why God permitted the white man to do to us, to the Native Americans, to others, what was done. Okay, now I'm bringing that up to today. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad used to tell us that the nation would fall, but it would rise and never fall again. I was at his table when he said, all of you will leave me. And one minister said, all of us? And he said, well, the few of you that remain will be so weak, it will look as though all had left me. And boy, we were in pain. And then he let that sink in, and then he said, quote, but all of you will return. But all of you will return. Well, that gave us a little lift in spirit. In the theology of time, he talked about the splitting of the moon from the earth. And he said we could bring it back. You remember him saying that? Yeah. As particles of dust, and gradually bring that part back with this part. I wondered about that. Now, here we are. the Honorable Elijah Muhammad allowed Warith Deen Muhammad to come back into the mosque in 1974, October, and made him his assistant minister, even though he knew what the Imam was thinking at that time. As bad as it may seem, the Imam had a work to do. That work had a negative impact on us, true, but the final analysis would be very, very positive. Why do you say that, Farrakhan? I question the judgment of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Why would you permit him to come back, put him in a responsible position, knowing that how he felt toward Master Farad Muhammad, how he felt toward his father, how he felt toward these teachings? Why would you do that? He had to have a reason, even though he didn't share that reason with me or you.
That's right.
And then, if Master Farad Muhammad is the great Mahdi, whom we said is Allah in the person of, then why would he permit the collapse and almost total destruction of 44 years of Elijah Muhammad's work? And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to me, Brother Munir, he said, when I think about it, it turns like a knife in my stomach. I know the Honorable Elijah Muhammad loves his children, but he also knew that there would be a time when there would be negativity in them for him. There's a whole lot in this history that is not necessary to talk about publicly, but, you know, my heart has never become hardened against the Imam. Every time I talked to him in private, when I was critical of him, I would ask if there was someone in the room, could he please excuse them? Because I did not want to speak critical of him in the presence of his followers. I have always shown respect for him whenever we met on an airplane or in an airport, or as I was coming out or he was going in, there was always a pleasant exchange between us. Now, he's been watching me because I know that Prophet Muhammad has a very significant part to play in the rebuilding of the Nation of Islam. But also, there can be no denial of the contribution of Master Farad Muhammad and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So the Imam and I sat at dinner during the Savior's Day Convention, and he said, brother, we're like two brothers who have been at extremes, and now we're coming back toward the center. Our extreme was that we loved the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Master Farad Muhammad, but we didn't have that kind of feeling for Prophet Muhammad. So he comes up in an extreme. In the other sense, he was negative toward Master Farad Muhammad and his father, but totally positive toward Prophet Muhammad. So now, here he is moving back away from that extreme. Here we are moving in a manner, Brother Munir, that I feel the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wanted all the time. Because when he dedicated the mosque in New York, he sent a tape, and we played the tape, and I called him on the telephone. I said, thank you, dear Apostle, for dedicating the mosque. He said, oh, brother, he said, that's not the mosque. One day you will have a great mosque, brother, and I want you to have in it a mimbar, and I want the mimbar to have 3 steps. Well, I've been in hotels. I know about mini bars, but I didn't know too much about a mimbar. And then, if you look at a mimbar is the place where the khatib or the imam delivers the khutbah at a Friday Juma prayer. Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, if you go back to 1957 when he was trying to get $20 million from the Muslim world, he had an artist drawing of a mosque with 4 minarets. He said, brother, this is a place where we go to pray. Then he had a hospital and a university. Okay, well, my brother, Imam Warith Deen Muhammad, he went away from his father. He went away from Master Farad. He disliked those teachings immensely. He had problems, he said, with those teachings. I heard that this past February 26th, he had a Savior's Day in North Carolina where he spoke with praise of Master Farad Muhammad. Does that signal a growth in his understanding as we too are growing in understanding? If so, then how should we treat him today when he must have had an assignment that Master Farad Muhammad approved of and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad approved of, because Elijah Muhammad put him in that place and knew what was going to happen. In 1961, we had a laborers' conference, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad spoke these words from the Bible. He said, when the abomination that bringeth desolation shall stand in the holy place. This is from, I think it's Daniel, the book of Daniel. And he talks about the Messiah being cut off. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad asked, do you know what that means, brother? It means hatred. When hatred will come in and stand in the holy place. Well, we witnessed this. For whatever the reason, the Imam showed intense dislike for Master Farad Muhammad, intense dislike for some of the methodology of his father and the teachings, and he stood in that house and spoke his sentiment, and it created a desolation. All right? But now look at the Imam, and look at him again. That's what I mean, respect. Look at him again. Is he also coming into a greater understanding of his father? Is he coming into a greater understanding of the role of Master Farad Muhammad? I would hope that I would have a private meeting with him to discuss with him our view and see what his view is. Because, Brother Munir, if you look at Scripture, in the history of Christianity, Paul was a great persecutor of Jesus and the Christians. And then one day on the road to Damascus, he saw a bright light and became one of the greatest preachers of Christianity. Khalid bin Walid was an enemy of the Prophet and killed Muslims. But when he came to faith, as he was the sword of opposition, he became known as the sword of Allah. And what I'm saying, Brother Munir, is let us watch and pray, and let us work for the reconciliation of our families and our nation, so that when we leave, we will leave a united people that have overcome the difficulties of the past and give praise to Allah when He says in the Quran, and you were on the brink of a pit of fire, and Allah saved you from it and united your hearts while before you were enemies.
You know, it's so much, and time just not going to permit it because...
we got to do more.
Yeah, because, and let me say, and I'm hoping, because I wanted to get into a point as we go the next time we talk, because of the suffering. You know, you mentioned Malcolm and Wallace, and I wanted to ask you, I went to Boston. You had a great captain there, Brother Clarence, who died of cancer, I think. And I interviewed some of those believers. They're beautiful, a group of people. They love you dearly, of course. And you also had a great captain that you went back to New York once, Brother Yusuf Shaw, Joseph. You know, and Jeremiah Shabazz, and, you know, he was a great fighter. I don't hear that kind of talk in the nation about those people who didn't ever, even though Yusuf Shaw a couple of times, you know, showed some signs of conforming against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in my opinion. But with some of them, I don't hear that part of the record spoken of. See, that's why people get the impression it's all Malcolm, all Wallace. And, you know, I have a lot of the tapes, and I have a lot of the history. And in 1960, in Baltimore, you know, where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did a tape, and we don't have time to talk about it, it's so much, but where he said, "I'm your first and last teacher." He said, "What will another one teach you?" I mean, you know, it is so much.
But what does that mean?
Yeah, that means a lot.
What does that mean? That does not mean that you won't have teachers. But it means that all the teachers that come
will bear witness
to the foundation that this teacher laid. Only we will be growing constantly in the wisdom of God. Again, brother,
we'll do it
may I just say this in closing? There were some beautiful Muslims in the 30s, in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, that made a tremendous contribution, but they've all passed away. Somehow, you know, foundational work is the most difficult work of all, but it's the most important work of all. But the foundation is covered up when the building goes up. But without that foundation, there would be no building. And I'm saying that some of those wonderful believers, we may not hear their names, but the remembrance of them when the history is written. Our history has not been written yet, Brother Munir, and it's your duty as the National Archivist to hold all of these things, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told me in closing, when Martin King was assassinated and I was weeping over his death, and I said, "Dear Apostle, you know, why? I mean, we were so against what he was doing. Why is it that when he dies, all of a sudden there's this great sadness that comes," I'm speaking now, "over me? I mean, I loved him. I didn't agree with him, but I loved him as a fighter for our people." Then he looked at me and said, "Brother, as long as the testator lives, he's writing his testament. But when he dies, he puts a period to his testament. Then the historians come and gather up everything about that man, and they assign him his place in history." And Brother Munir, I must say this for you, for me, and the great work that you do here on behalf of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam, that you are writing your testament as I am writing mine. Mm-hmm. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is still writing his testament. But when death comes, the historians will gather every bit of what we're doing, and history will assign us our place. None of our contemporaries, even those that walk with us and admire us, can assign us our place in history. Only time And the record of our accomplishment will do that for us. And most of the time, we never live to see what history will show about us.
I'm going to let you go, and what we're going to do,
We got to have part two,
part 2,
part 3,
and 3
and part 4.
Very good. My dear brothers and sisters, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. We're going to take a quick break, and if we come back with the minister, then you'll know that we did part 2. If not, we'll do it down the line. So thank you, and we'll be right back.